Hello and welcome to Live and Local. My name is Nick Palkowski and I am the host here of the show along with Brian Lawton, who you'll be seeing here in just a second. And on this episode of Live and Local, we're going to be talking about how you can actually go about and record a podcast to reach more people in your local community, and how you can actually do that while live streaming and what that can potentially look like. A few different options that you can have there, and really you're going to see the behind the scenes. Last week I know we went out and showed you what it's like to create a community guide using live streaming, but this time we're going to be here in the studio and showing you kind of the behind the scenes of recording a podcast episode for Brian's podcast, Small Leaders. So now let's transition over to that.
Hi, Mindy.
Hi, Brian.
Welcome to Small Leaders. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your busy day to talk about leadership and really the niche in leadership that we do at Small Leaders. And you're the perfect kind of guest, and I'll kind of expand on that later. But why don't we just start with kind of your background, what you do just in life and for business, and if you could just share that.
Yeah. Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I have been a licensed real estate agent now for a little over a year, probably about a year and a half. And I think that there were a lot of steps that brought me there. I think I was much better prepared to become a real estate agent than I initially thought that I was. I started a decorating business a couple years ago, and it kind of got me, it made me realize the passion I had for homes. And when I was introduced to real estate, it just seemed like such a perfect fit. And it was able to take that passion I have for homes just like one step further.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a licensed real estate agent now and a revival specialist with Property Revival, which means I help people with remodels. And then I also decorate. So
you're busy.
Yep, I'm very busy, but I'm loving everything that I'm doing, and I'm finding that I can help anybody with really any home problem that they have.
Right.
It's not just pigeonholed into one thing or another.
Mm-hmm. And you're being humble, but there's a lot of reasons I'm interested in talking to you about this concept of small leadership. But one of them is that you run multiple businesses, which you just said. You're a real estate agent, so you're sort of running your own business like that. You run Amazing Spaces by MK.
Yeah.
Right, which is an interior decorating business that you're very good at. You're a mom and a wife and all these things that you're doing. But in your first year of real estate, you were the top producing agent for our company, Property Revival Realty. But and can you talk a little bit just about that experience as part of your biography, as part of kind of the introduction to you? Is that's a lot of things in the air on any given day. Getting kids to school and focusing on decorating, and then you got renovations, and now you're a real estate agent, and oh, by the way, the top producing real estate agent, which is a testament to your work ethic and all these things. But what was that experience like in your first year? A lot of people sit back and go, well, she's just a natural, or lucky, or all these words that I always sort of take offense to because of what really happens behind the scenes. So just maybe you could just share a little bit more about that experience from the last year.
Yeah. Well, I think that people see the success that I'm having now, or that I had last year. They kind of are walking into one chapter of my book. My success, I think that the way that I was able to do what I did last year, it was really the result of several years of obedience to other things that I needed to do and that I did in my life that did not look so pretty and did not look so easy. And I followed those paths, and I was obedient to where I was in those moments and what the things that I went through. And I don't even think that in the moment last year that I realized that, but now looking back, when I hear that question of like, how did you do that? Well, it really looked like a lot of years of obedience, of doing what I needed to do to prepare myself for that industry and that moment and that situation. I can't lie, there were a lot of tears last year. There were a lot of irons in the fire, and I learned a lot. I worked really, really hard. And now this year I'm able to look at success a little bit differently and realize how to juggle being a mom, being a wife, being a friend, being a daughter, being a sister, all of those things, and following my heart and doing what I'm loving and maintaining the decorating.
Right.
I think a lot of people thought I would have
Just
to give
drop
that
it,
up,
right?
But
Yeah.
that's like the oxygen to my flame, and that's really where this passion drew from.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm able to put up some different boundaries that I wasn't prepared to put up last year that are protecting my sanity and my joy. And so I just think that I'm just working on doing what's right in front of me. So if it means that my decorating business happens to be booming right this moment, that's what I'm focusing on, and I'm not worrying about these other things. I'm just doing what's right in front of me and maintaining my values and things like that, and just not worrying about the other stuff.
I love that. And I know you and I have talked about it, but one thing, I know you addressed the agents at the end of your meeting, the annual meeting, and one thing that we considered titling your message to them was, "This year I just want to cry less."
Yeah.
And I sort of heard, I heard that, was reminded of that. But I loved your answer, and I heard kind of the next question I had in my mind, which is part of small leaders is sort of, identifying, companies are famous for developing mission statements and vision statements, and they write them on things, and you see them, and there's these long sentences with, maybe hard to figure out sort of things. And at Property Revival Realty, we boil it down to 3 words: help, gratitude, mindset, which speak to my personal life and a lot of lives in our company. But what I heard in your answer is that you have obedience to something, right? You sort of alluded to that. But I also heard the words, values, and really those principles that sort of you have in your life. And what do you have to say about that? Is there something you can share about those things that are sort of at your core personally that you're deploying into your business and living by, not only personally but in your business? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And first of all, I have to say that those 3 that Property Revival has kind of developed, that help, gratitude, and mindset, they are absolutely, I just think of mindset is really everything. And when you have the mindset of my job, my work is to help people and to be grateful for what I have right in front of me, whether it's a lot or a little as far as workload goes, it completely changes the outcome. Because work can either be defined as getting results, or it can be achieving money. And when you put it as getting results, that can be like, your results can be helping people. It can be personal growth. It can be so many other things other than monetary. And so I love the help, gratitude, and mindset. But one that I have added on, and it's really been what I am using as the foundation to my business and my life. And when I think about it, it's always been that way. But I never really pinpointed it until I read this book that Gary Keller, who is the owner of Keller Williams Realty, he wrote this book, and it's really a business book. It's for any sort of business owner, not necessarily real estate.
Right.
But it's called The One Thing, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, relationships. Like, I need to wipe everything off of the plate and just focus on relationships. And I need to, like, the first question in my brain before I react has got to be, what's best for the relationship? Whether it be a client, whether it be my kid, whether it be my husband, friend, whoever it is, whatever the situation is in my whole life, ultimately, that's what I have to say is like, well, maybe it's not going to make as much money. Maybe it's not going to get the monetary success or the other things that we in our culture are really, most people are, we're kind of bred to
driven
strive
that way,
for.
right? Yeah.
I keep that like as my foundation, as my one thing is the relationship, not the success, not the money, not the client, not the whatever it might be. The culture might be telling me I need to achieve. So really, my main value every day when I wake up is relationship.
It's great, and it's which is grounded in help. I mean, at the end of the day too. And there's I love the way you describe disconnecting the outcome of whatever you think is going to happen and just focusing on that relationship and letting. It's just a very mindful way to go about business and go about life. And it's not easy, and it is an unlock. I know for me personally too, when you can get to that place where you're in control of the outcomes, not because you can control the outcome, but because you can control the process.
Right.
And if you enjoy that and set yourself in that relationship, like you're talking about, emotionally, and just fully invest in that and disconnect whatever the expectation is, it's that's hard to do. Yeah. But it's great, and I know that in our business in real estate, it's really hard to do.
Really important.
But it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you don't do that, if you don't figure out at some point, and for me, I'm glad that I'm realizing it fairly early on in my career, that if I don't disconnect that, and if I don't put a different value on success and a different value on results, that it steals my joy.
I love that. I'm sitting here going the small leaders, pillars, the principles, the action, the small details, but I think one of the things that we're starting to find as a theme is that successful people are able to do that, define success very differently than the masses, I think. And especially from the outside, they look at money and things you have and all these things. But so that's the next thing. You're reading The One Thing, or read The One Thing, which I have too, and it's a great business book, like you said.
Great business book, yeah.
And Nick just showed it there. But he talks a lot about taking action, basically, and really focusing on that one thing. And the way we talk about it here is, leadership often is confused with being a visionary or having these big, huge ideas about things. And what we think what's lost there is that that's really not leadership. I mean, that's maybe a part of leadership, a small part. Right. But real leadership is in the trenches, which is taking action, whether it's on behalf of your company or with clients or your colleagues, or whatever these things are. I guess my question is, what are your thoughts on that? When you have you're somebody with great ideas, you do these amazing spaces business, and you're obviously an idea person, right? But how do you then transfer that to action? Or how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm very much if you want something done, you've got to do it yourself kind of person. I do have a lot of ideas. I think that that started with my decorating business, and so ideas spark, and if I have this idea of how my living room is going to look rearranged, I am not waiting for my husband to get home from work to rearrange my living room. I'm going to find my furniture sliders, and I'm going to rearrange my furniture. And so I've just always kind of been that person. But I think vision, it starts with vision. Yeah. And I think to be a leader, that's a really important piece of it.
Know where we're going.
Yep. And so I don't know that you can be, I think you can be, how do I say this? I think you can be a leader you can't be a leader without the vision and the action, I guess. Because I think that they're both just so important, and maybe even equally important. But you certainly, to be a leader, you can't just have ideas. You have to put them to action. The vision part is kind of the fun part, but it takes somebody with drive and motivation and all of those other things to actually set things in motion.
And to vision how to get there.
Yeah.
Whatever that.
And to set goals and to hold yourself accountable to those goals.
All of those things. And have the right team built. And that's so hard. So how do you, what would your recommendation be? So you come through your first year of real estate, you have all these, things you're juggling. What's your recommendation to people, to a listener saying, I'm a first year agent, or I'm a 10th year agent, I don't care what it is, but taking action? What's your advice there about creating that action in your business or your life, or becoming a person of action rather than just ideas? You're saying the balance is what you believe in, and I think I do too, but how do you turn the corner then from vision to action in your life and just in your business? You say you're sort of born that way.
Yeah, I am, but I think that in this business, you have to be self-motivated, and you have to be responsible for your own schedule, and a lot of times. And I think that one thing that I have found that really takes me from envisioning and hoping and dreaming about how I want my business to look like to actually seeing that outcome and having my business actually look like and feel like that is doing the hard things first. Is just really taking that frog, if you will, and eating it.
Eat that frog. Yeah.
You know, I've actually never read the book, but I love that phrase, and I think I can guess what the book is about, because it's so true. I know for me that if I just do that one hard thing that I don't want to do and that I'm procrastinating on, if I just do that, I can move mountains. Usually within the same
Day.
couple of hours.
Yeah.
Because I just, that's I think the hardest thing is just getting over that and doing the hard things. And just...
So, do you have an example of that? Something in design or real estate, or maybe, I know you've got, you're a real estate investor now too.
Yeah.
I don't know, what are...
Well, I mean, I don't know if I should admit this as a real estate agent, but my email, man, it is not something that I've ever been good at. And so now I make it a point, like every morning, to get in there and clear out the junk, manage my inbox. I'll go on vacation and then, I have to start all over. But things like that, like those, like I dread going into my email because I know there's stuff that just stuff that I don't know what to do with necessarily, but I know I need to get it out of my inbox. So now, like, that's my thing. I need to get that done right away so that I'm not thinking about the emails that I'm not, that might be there that I don't know where to, whatever. But, it's even, things with my family or my house or whatever it might be, just doing the hard things and then kind of rewarding yourself with, like, all these easy things now you get to cross off your list.
Yeah, that's interesting, starting your day with that thing that you dislike the most, it sounds like, but just that willingness to put it into your routine, to clear it out. And it sounds like email is kind of clutters your mind too, right?
It's like that thing
it's
lingering
just
over my
sitting
head.
there. No, that's a great example. So you are a detail person, and I know about you, but obviously not many other people maybe. Talk to me about details in your business and why you feel they're important, or even your personal life. One of the things that we talk about is, how you do everything down to the smallest of things, the way your business card feels and looks, the font you choose on website and social media, the way you word sentences in your social media, or phrase things, or the hashtags you choose, and there's so many little details about business, and paying attention to those can obviously become obsessive, and that's not what we're talking about, but paying attention to those things in the right ways can elevate your business and elevate you as a person as well. And I admire that about just you in general. Like, you're very much into the details of things, in the way you present yourself, in the way you think about things, in the way you develop, like the way you handle clients and the processes and the commitment to serve them that you give. There's just a lot of little details that are unique, which is why you're a top producer. People don't necessarily always quickly relate those things, but it matters.
Yeah.
But what are some details that you use, and how do you engage with small details kind of in your life that you carry through to your business?
Well, as they say, the small things are the big things, like over, the course of a lifetime. It's all the little small things that really add up. And I learned so much last year, personally, and obviously in my businesses. And I'm really grateful for all of that, and it really gave me something to reflect back on and things. And that's like something that I look at, like, what's broken and how to fix it, kind of. So, every transaction that I went through, I kind of I noticed the details in hindsight, and I plucked out the things that didn't work well, or the things that I wasn't happy about, or if I had a client asking me a question at the end of a transaction, and I'm like, okay, they shouldn't be asking me this question at this point in the transaction. Like, why did they not know that in the beginning? How can I make sure that my client's going forward? So really just failing through, like, things that, my business and learning and even personally, like, now I have, like, I've never been so busy in all of my life. And so figuring out what details need to be, my floors and my bathrooms need to be cleaned, and those are little details that I don't have time to do. So delegating, and like, I the way that I use detail is I figure out what's not working. I identify what I don't like, what the feedback I get, all of those things, and I just figure out a process to fix them. So in my real estate business, it was a lot of like, okay, like you and I have talked about, having a system where I know I have right in front of me what the information that I need from my clients at this moment, so that I don't have to bother them again in this evening or tomorrow with these questions. So it's really just through failure I figure out, like, the small things that need to be taken care of and how I fix them and going forward.
I'm glad you brought up failure, because that is, to me, what that's where success is in the failure of it all. So we always, what we talk about in our business and our lives, having a big why, which a lot of people, Gary Keller talks about, a lot of books about that, but that reason that your 2 feet hit the ground every morning, in a motivated kind of way. But then, that success formula is really easy, and that's having a goal, creating action steps to reach the goal, and then failing as fast as you can to get there. And while that formula is easy, there's all sorts of people. Most people aren't successful necessarily because of what you're saying. Like, they get caught up in the lack of action and the lack of willing to fail and try, and that's so important. It's such a great point.
Yeah, well, and I think that what has stalled me the most is getting hung up on those failures, and not even necessarily failures, but negativity. Like, something negative happening in my real estate business, and focusing on that, and and talking about it and complaining about it and doing all of those things, then that situation turned into a failure, right? But if I just look at it like, well, it happened, I learned something from it, like finding some positive, or even if even if it was just a crummy situation, moving forward and not getting caught up in that negative spiral, because that's when it turns into failure.
Right, but what you said is that you take, like, those things. A client had asked you a question at the end of a transaction, and you said to yourself, you acknowledge that as maybe a failure on you, which I also love. Like, you just own that. Like, a lot of people wouldn't see that, but you own it, and then it's like, I'm going to turn this into positive because I'm going to improve my process. Yeah, and that's
right. You just have to keep moving forward in a positive manner, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's just not fun. Like, life, business, work, it's just not any fun. And that's something that I'm really focusing on right now through, I'm a huge, personal growth. Yeah. I love reading about and just, growing personally, and I've always been that way. And that's something that I'm really working on right now is not, swinging from success to success, or to, excitement to excitement, or,
enjoying
just being steady, and just being joyful and in the moment. And
speaking of that, in the moment, I know you're a morning routine person, right? When you're in your best, when you're in your best,
when I'm on my game.
When you're on your game, you're a morning miracle. You read that book, you enjoyed that. I remember we've talked about that book. Nick has done work with Morning Miracle, or Miracle Morning. Sorry. When you're on your game, like you just said, what does that morning look like for you? Are you an early riser by nature?
Not by nature.
So by nature, you're like, let me sleep in, let me stay up late, sort of thing.
Well, I'm not. I love that. Like, I'm not a night owl or an early bird, but I middle of the day, I can rock it.
Okay, all right.
I'm like a 7 o'clocker that just isn't real life right now.
It's not real life, right?
I actually think that when I have time to sleep in. I'll be an earlier riser because I won't have like this little kid stress that kind of makes me need more sleep right now, I think. But coffee is a big part of my morning. And this winter, I incorporated a happy light that I sit with. Well, I do like my quiet time. I'm a big believer in positive affirmation, prayer, scripture, just something to fill up my positivity, because I just believe that if I start my day on a positive note, on a high note, with an attitude and a mindset of like I'm in control of the way that I respond to everything that's gonna like, you know, I just put up a shield. I feel like that's like a shield for me to like to knock away all there's so much stuff that can come into, you know, traffic. Like there's so many things that can interrupt your day and turn it into like, you know, a negative. And so I just think that filling up in the morning with those, you know, a warm cup of coffee and some positive affirmations or prayer, like I said, like just, you know, those kinds of things that it just really sets you up for success through your whole day.
No, I love that. Do you get to do that most mornings?
Most mornings. And honestly, you know, even if it just looks like reading a couple pages of one of the several books that I'm reading at the time, you know, I typically am reading one or two different business books at any given time. I try to do something for pleasure or for my spirituality. So even if it just looks like reading a couple of those pages or listening, you know, if I have an early morning appointment and I don't have time for those, then I get in my car and I listen to an audiobook or a podcast or something. Like I just try to fill my head with positive, like good messages, good. There's so many great books that like there's just not enough time in my day for all the stuff that I want to take
What are you reading?
in.
What are these positive things?
Right now I'm reading it's by Brian Buffini, I believe his name is. It's a referral book. It's just how to build a business on referral, because that's always from day one. That's been my thing. Like I think that the best marketing for me is to do a fantastic job for my clients, so that's really how I'm trying to build my business. The most recent book I read for fun was The Nightingale, which was about World War II and these women that just like took that time period on when it wasn't, you know, that was before women really and it was so great. So I'm reading a book called Whisper. Like I have lots of
it's great,
lots of books that I'm constantly rotating through. But
good for you.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice you'd have for a new agent, like somebody that has a goal of being a top producer, let's say, what's your advice to them?
I think you know, and I didn't have to be patient, to be honest. But you know, going from being top producer into my second year, I mean, those are big shoes to fill.
I don't think people understand that. We haven't really talked about that, but that's a thing.
That's like, a scary thing. It's a thing, and it's something that has really forced me to reflect on where I put my values and where my joy lies. And like being okay with, like, if I'm not the top producer 2 years in a row, I have to be okay with that, right? Exactly. And so I've been teaching myself to be patient and to trust the process. And in the meantime, filling my brain, like getting my, you know, my accreditations and educating myself and really honing in on my processes and finding those things that didn't work last year and making sure that I'm better set up for that kind of year again, whether it's right now or in 2 months or next year, whatever that is, just going through it with a good mindset, because otherwise, what's the point?
So I hear patience and
patience and learning and just I think trusting where you're at and just like really take good care of what's right in front of you instead of worrying about being a top producer at the end of 2018. I have lots of things right now that I can be and I need to be and I should be focusing on, and so not letting that pressure have any influence on the way that I'm living my life right now. So just really just take care of do your best on what's in front of you right now, and just doing your best over and over, like over the course of, a year, it will change your trajectory, I think.
That's great. One last question for you.
Okay.
Talk to me about the minivan life. You've got kids, and you're a female leader, business owner.
Yeah.
How does that play into all your success, the way you view? I mean, certainly it fits into your value system and what you've talked about already, and those principles and that mindfulness and resetting the joy. You've said, I got to locate what makes me joyful, and I'm sure that plays a part. But talk a little bit about just female leadership, being a woman in business, being a mom, being a wife, like all that thing, the perfect storm of all of that.
Yeah.
You find a lot of strength in it. I know that. Like you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's not easy. Before I was doing real estate, I had actually I was doing my decorating business very part time as I was building that. And before that, I was a surgical tech for 12 years. And then I took some time off in between even decorating and my job at the hospital to just be home with my kids because my husband was so busy. And so, my husband and I kind of got into this groove of, him providing and working and me kind of doing all a lot of the parental duties. And when I became busier and busier in my real estate business and decorating and all of these things, not a lot of those duties that I had taken on as like the sole parent to kind of do, they didn't necessarily fall off. So it's been a lot of learning and changing and being flexible, and putting up boundaries for myself and treating my business like a business, because in real estate, at my hospital job, I could never take my job home with me ever. Right. There was no
chance
feasible, no physical way for me to do that. And I always say, like, I'm always in jeopardy of becoming a workaholic because I love what I do, and it's right. I work from home a lot, so it's right there in front of me. And so this year, I am so much better at and like setting my clients up to understand that, like, unless it's a contractual, like, a really important deadline or something like that. Right. If you message me between these hours, I'm probably not going to get back to you right away. And just like being confident enough to set those boundaries for myself and my family, and realizing, I've had a lot of aha moments where I've caught myself brushing off my family or putting my family on the back burner to meet a client's needs. And in those moments realizing, like, wait a minute, this isn't okay. Like, these are my people. I can't just brush off my people. I have to preserve these couple of hours in the evening, or these really important times. We do Friday night family fun night where we do movies or games or whatever, and just preserving those times and just saying, like, these times are off limits. I didn't have the confidence to do that last year, and now this year I do. And so you just have to keep growing and keep changing and being flexible and figuring out what's not working and looking at, like, it didn't work. When I heard my daughter say, like, Mom, you're always leaving, or you're never home, like, that didn't work for me. So, if I can't help clients who respect my family time and my personal life,
then they're not.
Then I can't help them, because I can't help them if they're not going to respect me and my family and my. I think sometimes people forget that real estate agents are real people. So just like, having the confidence to be like, no, I'm sorry, and setting yourself up for success. And that looks like telling your clients up front, like, these are some times that I'm not as available to you if there's there's a true real estate emergency. But if it's something super important, obviously I'll get to it. But just protecting my family time and my friends, all of that, it's so important. So
it's great advice.
Yeah,
great advice. Thanks for doing this. I heard a lot from you about empathy and about relationship, and I learned a lot. I see it in action, and I truly respect the work that you do, because I watch it happen. And
thank you.
I appreciate you being here. You're busy.
Yeah.
And thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank all of you for being here, and hopefully you enjoyed this kind of behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to actually record a podcast while live streaming. And thank you both, Brian and Mindy, for being here and helping us out with that. But if you want to learn more about the show, simply head on over to, or type show in the comments, or head on over to liveactionproduction.com, where you can subscribe and learn all about what we have to offer here in terms of helping you grow your local business with live streaming. And until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and grow your business with live streaming.